No, thank you. Sleepy. Can you come back in an hour?
Need sleepy.
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligiuri, and it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Happy New Year to everybody. Feels like a whole year since we've seen, well, I guess we've been back for almost a year. But anyway, hope everybody had a very happy and thrilling and family-oriented and all that stuff. I hope everyone had a great holiday season, and it's great to be back to kick off the 2017 Billy C. Show. We are entering our 14th year, but today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328. That's 912-268-2328. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by Fight TV, and we're happy to be part of Fight TV's programming. Download the Fight TV app for free and watch our show along with other combat sports related shows and events on Fight TV. So just go to www.fight, that's FITE.tv/Billy C. Download it for free and watch all that stuff forever for free. You just got to go to Fight TV/Billy C. And today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. Get yourself a copy right now. Find out why we got a 5-star rating across the board. And if you're looking to get a signed copy, don't worry about it. Just visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the book club section. Well, as we kick off 2017, I wanted to take today's show, and we got Larry Hazzard scheduled to join us in a little bit, and Alex Perpali. We're going to be doing a blast from the past today, as per a request on former heavyweight champion Pinklon Thomas. So Alex and I will chat about him. But to kick off the show, I would like to start talking about what our final thoughts on 2016 were and what we can expect for 2017, what our predictions or projections or both are for 2017. So I want to chat about that. Also, I got a couple of emails to read. I want to talk about our first post-fight show. More bad news for Alexander Povetkin. In the football world, we got the College Football National Championship I want to chat about, the NFL playoff start. And my man Coach sent me a link to an article that is very disheartening about some stuff going on in the sport of boxing, where it may be heading. And it's funny because it's something that I said about as far as the technology. I predicted this a long time ago, but I certainly didn't think of it along these lines. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And, of course, our main topic today, Triple G and Daniel Jacobs. Will this fight be competitive? I hope so. I hope so. Joining me right now from a lot warmer spot than I'm in, New Jersey Boxing Hall of Famer, Guinness Book World Record holder, my main man, Sal Rocky Senicola. What's up, Sal?
Hey, good morning, Bill. How are you today, pal?
Oh, not too bad, man. Doing better than I was the other day. I want to apologize to you and all the listeners that were expecting us to come live as we had advertised on Monday, the 4th or the 3rd or whenever it was, and we didn't get there. We weren't there because I was sick as a dog, my man. I mean, I couldn't even move. It was terrible. It was awful. I'm telling you, it was terrible. But we're back today. We're entering our 14th year. I'm excited. Sal, before I read a couple of emails, a couple of things. First and foremost, do you think Triple G, Daniel Jacobs, which is a big fight that we're looking forward to in the middleweight division, will be taking place in New York City. Do you think that fight's going to be competitive? I know we've talked a lot about it in the past, before it was signed. It is signed, sealed, and delivered now. But just a quick thought: do you think it's going to be competitive?
Well, I do. I think you and I, gave some inclinings about what we could expect to see. And, it's so funny. We should probably, working towards this fight, give our opinions as we usually do, what each fighter needs to do to win, and look to what each fighter needs to look out for from the other fighter. But I could see Jacobs with his hand speed. He's got a little pop on his punch. And if he could keep his lateral movement and get in and out and nullify or just take away some of Triple G's skills as a ring general, which is tough to do because I think Triple G is going to be cutting the ring off and doing what he can do. He knows it like no other. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, especially early. And if Daniel Jacobs could jump on him and try to get some fast shots in there and catch Triple G off guard early, it could be a competitive fight. But ultimately, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Triple G's a hard bull to keep off with a matador's cape, We'll see what happens.
Well, I think that Daniel Jacobs has the... honestly, I think Daniel Jacobs has the boxing ability. He does have fast hands. He is fairly accurate with his punches. He doesn't... I've seen him with decent movement, although in his last fight, or at least his fight with Kid Chocolate, he jumped all over Kid Chocolate. I'm thinking that he might, try that with Triple G. It may be his best approach. And as far as being competitive, I don't know. I think if he can catch Triple G off guard, if for some reason Triple G takes Daniel Jacobs lightly, I think a lot of the pressure, Sal, believe it or not, is on Triple G. Because nobody, at least in my world, nobody's given Daniel Jacobs much of a chance. And if Triple G, for some reason, is taking this guy lightly, it may spell trouble for him, especially if Daniel Jacobs decides to put his foot on the gas pedal as soon as the first bell sounds.
Well, I think you make an excellent point. And, that's it. Well, that's what's so beautiful about the fight game. I always say, any given night, any fighter can be beaten. We just don't know. When they enter that ring with their mind, body, heart, and soul, conditioning, what they're prepared for, and you just never know. There's those variables that come into play. Yes, on paper, black and white, things all being even considered, yeah, we know I would think that Triple G should come out the victor. But, like I said, fight night, you never know what's going to come along and happen. Going in, stepping into the ring.
Nope.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a competitive fight, as you say. Triple G, we know what we can expect from him. Daniel Jacobs, he could jump on him. I think that's a great strategy because he's got to get there and get respect from Triple G right away. And so we'll see. It could be competitive for a couple good rounds, and then the momentum of the fight. Let's see how it either goes in one favor or another, or ebb and flow. We'll see.
We got a couple of emails.
I'm excited about it, though.
We got a couple of emails that actually came in right around our last show, so we'll get these out of the way. This one's from my man Rick. He says that he hopes that we had a great Christmas. And he says, I'm looking forward to the Joshua Klitschko fight too, but he says only because Klitschko will finally have no place left to hide. He says the way you make it sound at Billy C is some kind of Clash of the Titans or something. Did you ever see Klitschko's last two fights? Or did you even see Klitschko's last two fights? He failed to impose himself against the smaller, crude, slugging Bryant Jennings. And when he finally stepped in the ring with someone his own size in Tyson Fury, he looked timid and afraid to fight. Anthony Joshua is a beast. He's 6'6" of pure muscle, not some bumbling, bald-headed idiot like Tyson Fury. What makes you think a 40-year-old Vladimir Klitschko is going to come back after a long layoff and find the fire one last time? When did Klitschko ever have the fire? This has brutal knockout win for Anthony Joshua written all over it. Pass the torch, sucker. Listen. I see where Rick's coming from, Sal.
I
certainly
very
can't
poignant on his part.
I certainly can't argue too much about him because I have said many times that Klitschko is an extremely boring fighter. He always seemed to not have that fire burning. But I will say this. When you can stoke the embers and light that fire under Klitschko, like Kubot Pulev did for some reason,
Yes.
Vladimir Klitschko came out and fought Kubot Pulev like I've never seen him fight before. As a matter of fact, that was the most exciting fight I've ever seen him in. And if that Klitschko shows up, 40 years old or not, I think that's going to be trouble for Anthony Joshua. I'm not sure that fighter will show up, and I agree with Rick that the long layoff plus being 40 plus maybe not even having a desire anymore. I don't know, but I will say this: the titles were very important to Vladimir Klitschko, and his main goal in boxing was to acquire all the titles, especially the WBC one that his brother had given up. If you recall, Vlad had every title but the WBC. So maybe that desire to get all those titles back could fuel the fire and let Vladimir Klitschko come out as the tiger that he should be. He certainly doesn't. He's not doing this for the money, Sal. So I don't know. Good point by Rick. What do you think?
Good points. I think Rick made some good, valid assessments there with this fight. And Klitschko, we know he's been one of the best out there in the heavyweight division for such a long time. Yes, he's in the twilight of his career. And can he go back to the well and pull out one? Well, he's got his ring experience. He can. And he has his pride. He has the ring experience. He can go out there and try to do everything he can. I do see the young Herculean fighter in Joshua. And we got the chin variable. We have the any given night variable. So, again, this is going to be an interesting fight. I'm looking very forward to it. And it could be the night of the passing of the torch, or it could be the sustained success and reign of the last hurrah and for Klitschko. So that's why it's an exciting fight for me. I definitely am looking forward to it. And I could see each fighter making their stance and making a good point. And it ain't over till it's over. But we'll see.
We got another email. This one's from Raheem. He says, "Hey, Billy C, my Bears have, again, disappointed me. And what's worse is the Cubs won the World Series. I'm from the south side of Chicago, so we root for the White Sox. As far as my Bears, Fox will likely be fired." He's talking about the coach, Fox. He says, "So the coach I think they need is Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan has been to two AFC championship games. He knows how to win, and he's got the great knowledge of the X's and the O's. The Jets are nowhere once they fired the best coach ever since they had Pete Carroll when he was fired. He won a USC championship and a Super Bowl. The Bears need a true leader who can lead us to a Super Bowl. Matt Barkley, we might lose to free agency, and Cutler needs to be cut. If that happens, should the Bears go after Rex Ryan and a proven winner at quarterback like Tim Tebow? All he did was win, and he's available." Sometimes I wonder if Raheem is on any kind of illegal substance because, first of all, Fox is going nowhere. He's a great coach. I mean, this guy, you can't blame him for the Bears. Maybe Cutler, he's just not a team leader. Rex Ryan, I got nothing negative to say about Rex Ryan. I liked Rex Ryan. Yes, he's available, but I don't think John Fox is getting fired. As far as Rex Ryan knowing the X's and the O's, he knows defense. He's not an offensive guy. Pete Carroll was terrible in the NFL before he went to USC. He has proven himself with Seattle. I'm not a big Pete Carroll fan, so I'm not sure. Interesting email. Let's just say that. Thanks for taking the time to email us, Raheem. But God, Sal, I don't know. What'd you send this guy? But anyway, hey, listen, let's take a short break. When I come back, I want to talk to you real quick about the football picture with the college and pros. Then I want to throw at you an update on Povetkin and some other things. So everybody, don't go nowheres. We'll be back in 2.
I'll be right here.
The Morning Show will be right back.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now, back to the Billy C Morning Show. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening to the Billy C Morning Show. And yeah, we're back for 2017. We'll give a special shout out to all of our listeners on ESPN New Hampshire. Glad you guys could be with us. And we're glad to be with you this morning, as well as all of our viewers on Fight TV. Glad you guys are watching. Don't forget to download the app, www.fight.tv. That's FITE.tv/Billy C. And joining me now is my main man, Sal Rocky Senecola. And Sal, Alexander Povetkin, as we know, as we close the year, he was scheduled to fight Berman Stavern, and lo and behold, shocker, he tests positive for a banned substance once again. And this is a guy that has, joined the WBC clean boxing program, their CBP, and he tested positive. Stavern hopped in on a plane and went home, and Povetkin was spoon-fed a sacrificial lamb and won. Under the rules of the WBC, Sal, Povetkin had a choice of either admitting that he used an illegal substance, which the substance that he tested positive for was ostarine. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, but OSTARINE. And he had the option of saying, yeah, I effed up, or I was framed, test the B sample, and he's chosen to have the B sample tested, which I believe is taking place today or tomorrow. I forget. It's either today or tomorrow. And I ask you this. Here's a guy that I actually stuck up for the first time around. Yeah. He got a second chance. Once again, he tests positive. It seems to be, no disrespect to the Russian fighters, but it seems to be consistent with the Russian fighters and all Russian athletes that, they're dipping into the wrong well, so to speak. What do you think should be done? If for some reason, if this tests okay, if this B sample tests clean, what's the WBC going to do about it? Are they going to force Povetkin to fight another fight before he gets Wilder? Are they going to let him fight Wilder? If the sample tests dirty, like it should, since the first sample tested dirty, do they ban this guy? I mean, what do you do, Sal, if you're wearing the WBC hat and you're in charge of this investigation?
Well, if it tests positive again, boom, he's done. I wouldn't let him do that. He's got to stay clean for a year, whatever it would be. Here's the thing. These performance-enhancing drugs they're banned for a reason. And you could have a chemically induced league and a natural league. I'm all for the natural league. That you do what God gave you as your tools and your body, your heart, mind, body, and soul, your physical attributes. You work on your strengths and you try to improve on what's not as strong, and that's how you do it. And you come into the ring as a human being, and not fueled by some sports enhancing drugs by any means. So yeah, I think the WBC should look closely at this. And here's my take on the fighters. If he tested dirty one time, I mean, Al, you're on the radar, okay? You want to make sure you're going to be clean for your recheck. You know what? Guess what? You should do anything and everything you can within your power to stay clean, to stay away from it. Because the last thing you need to do is what you did, test positive again, and put the doubt in everyone's mind. So this guy, you know, he already is pushing the envelope too far, and I think the WBC should definitely take their stance and be strong on him.
Well, the WBC, the reason why they're even in play here is because that's the title he was trying to get a shot at, right? So, but it's going to be interesting to see, and it's a shame because I thought that he had a very good chance of beating Deontay Wilder. But hey, one of the things that we're going to be doing here in 2017 is we're going to be doing a hell of a lot more of the post-fight shows, Sal, something that you and I both love to do.
Yes.
And the first one is next weekend, Saturday the 14th. We will be doing a post-fight show immediately following the Badou Jack and James DeGalley fight, which is on Showtime. So mark that one down. Our schedule will be, next week, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and then the post-fight show on Saturday. So I'll mark that one down for next week. I also wanted to talk about the football picture right now, Sal. College football national championship Monday between Alabama and Clemson. This is a rematch from last year, my man.
I know. You love Alabama.
I love Alabama. And guess what? I love Clemson too. I'm a big Clemson.
I mean, this is a clash of the Titans. I heard that somewhere before today.
Big Clemson Tiger fan as well. Now, it's a rematch, and in boxing, a lot of times a rematch can go in the fighter's favor who lost the first fight. Maybe he or she learned something, although it didn't help Ronda Rousey. But a lot of times a fighter might learn something seeing a fighter a second time. What do you think about football? Do you think Clemson has the ability to stop the Big Red Machine in Alabama, or is the tide going to keep rolling?
Well, here you go again, Billy C. I'll tell you, as far as college football, as beautiful a sport it is a lot different from the pros because a lot of times you have different students graduating, coming in. If they have their same core team that played the same game, and there haven't been too many changes on either team, then I think the result could be similar. But, you are getting through that whole system, the whole scholastic system on a collegiate level. And you're getting younger players coming up and the graduates going on to the pros or going on with their life. So that's why college football is very, very tricky and picky. Tricky with the picky. I like that.
Well, I tell you, Clemson has the ability to beat Alabama.
Yeah,
they're very fast. They're an explosive offensive team. I think Washington in the bowl game against Alabama showed that on their first possession, speed and everything. But what Alabama does better than any team in college football is they break them down slowly, like a fighter does, working the body, and that's what Alabama does. They break them down. If you can keep it close with Alabama, or if Alabama keeps the game close, they usually take over in the second half. The only shot that Clemson has is to jump ahead several touchdowns and make Alabama play catch up. If Alabama can get into a running game and grind it out with Clemson, they're going to wear them down, and the end result will be the same. Last year it was a shootout. This year I'm not so sure. We'll have to wait and see on Monday. Hey, give it kudos to the Georgia Bulldogs for winning their bowl game in a tough one. But they came out on top. I'm looking for big things.
I was so happy to hear that.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
I'm looking for big things with Georgia next year. Trust me, they're going to be
see some big things with Georgia,
they're going to be in the top 5. I think. I really do.
So.
Next year. But NFL football playoffs.
Yes, NFL. I want you to
just so we know, the AFC, the 6 teams competing in the number 1 spot, the New England Patriots, number 2 spot, the Kansas City Chiefs. In my opinion, those are the 2 top teams in the conference. And I think, unfortunately for the Raiders, the loss of their quarterback really hurt them. I really thought that the Raiders were in the mix. They look like they're in a heap of trouble right now. But the Patriots are number 1, Chiefs number 2, Steelers end up at the 3rd spot, Texans at the 4th spot, and the Raiders at number 5, and the Dolphins, last team to get in the playoffs in the wild card spot at number 6. Over in the NFC, the Cowboys and the Falcons take the first 2 spots. And like the Patriots and Chiefs, they earn a first-round bye in the playoffs. The 3rd seed is Seattle. The 4th seed is the Packers. The 5th seed is your Giants. And the 6th seed is the Lions. Now, what do we get this weekend? Well, the wild card playoffs for the AFC puts number 5 Oakland Raiders visiting the Houston Texans on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the Dolphins have to travel to Pittsburgh and play the Steelers. That's what's taking place in the AFC. Over in the NFC, the Lions have to travel to Seattle on Saturday night, and the G-Men will be going to Green Bay on Sunday.
Wow.
You know, I think we got some pretty tough games for all these teams.
Yes, we do.
I really think that the Raiders, if they had their quarterback, would be making a run. Since they don't have their quarterback, I think they're going to struggle in this game. The Dolphins and the Steelers game really is a question mark. I don't know which Dolphin team is going to show up. The Lions and the Seahawks, everybody knows it's tough to beat the Seahawks in Seattle. And then you got your team, the Giants, going up against the Packers. There's nobody hotter right now than Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, it's a tough team to beat.
You know, to beat Green Bay in Green Bay is tough.
They got a tall task ahead of them.
But the Giants, you know, I will say this about the Giants. I'm not a fan, but in the previous years that they have gone to the Super Bowl, they've had this sense of luck that has surrounded the team, and, you know, the sense of positivity. And it's something I see with this New York Giants team right now. I think if they could somehow get past the Packers on Sunday, they may go further than I thought. But I'm still predicting the Cowboys. I was hoping that the Cowboys and the Raiders would be in the Super Bowl, but I'm predicting that the Cowboys, the 2 best teams are the Cowboys and the Patriots, but I have a strange feeling that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to end up in the Super Bowl. So I'm predicting the Chiefs and the Cowboys in the Super Bowl right now. What's your thoughts?
I'm writing that down. Chiefs and Cowboys. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to put on my Nostradamus hat and take a good look at it. I'll give you my answer on Friday.
Give me my answer on Friday. I'm looking for your answer right now. Who do you think's going to be? I don't want to wait till after the games. I mean, come on.
You know, if the Giants aren't in, I want to see the Cowboys.
The Giants are not getting in the Super Bowl.
All right, easy.
I mean, listen.
You always have to pin and break my bubble, burst my balloon, and all this. I want the Giants in the Super Bowl.
I wanted the Jets in the Super Bowl, but it ain't happening for either. But listen, at least the Giants are still playing, and they have every chance of winning. So, good luck to you.
I think the Cowboys are going to be Super Bowl champ.
Well, I think the
Giants don't make it.
I think the Cowboys are the best team, and you know, assuming that the Giants end up going through Dallas to get into the Super Bowl, I just can't see the Giants beating the Cowboys 3 times in one season. They already beat them twice.
Why not? They got their number, man.
Yeah, but
it's like Pacquiao fighting Mayweather. You think Pacquiao's going to beat Mayweather? Never. Out of 100 fights, maybe once or twice.
I don't know about that. But,
I don't know about that.
But
I'll tell you right now, Cowboys look good, and but I love the fact that if they do win the Super Bowl, the Giants gave them those 2 losses. I love that.
Well, you know what? In sports, professional sports, all that matters is championships. So I think that if the Cowboys go ahead and win, which, hey, they could be bounced out next week. They do have a bye this week, so they can rest up and get healthy. But a lot of times, I think the bye might hurt teams. You know, I think that hurt. I think, yeah, you know, I think the flow.
Golden Glove championships, it hurts in everything.
Yeah, you know, you need that flow. You know, but
you need the flow. You need the momentum. The momentum.
Correct. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to our first post-fight show in a couple of weeks. But anyway, hey,
yes.
We're going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to have Larry Hazzard on, and we're going to see you later in the week, my man.
You will. Okay. I want to say thank you again and have a great day, everyone.
All right, my man.
Take care,
Talk to you
Bill.
later. All
Talk
right.
to you later.
That's my man Sal Rocky Senecola giving us his thoughts, and next time he'll be here, we'll be opening up the phone lines and getting your thoughts. But now I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, we're scheduled to have Boxing Hall of Famer Larry Hazzard join us. I'll be back in 2.
The Billy C. Morning Show will be right back.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C. first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to the Billy C. Morning Show. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening to the Billy C. Morning Show. Special shout out to all of our viewers on Fight TV. Glad to be with you guys today. And I want to give a special shout out to all of our listeners on ESPN New Hampshire. Glad to be part of your morning. And being part of our morning right now is my man. He's a Boxing Hall of Famer and the New Jersey Boxing Commissioner. Please welcome Larry Hazzard. What's up, Larry? I hope you had a great holiday.
Hey, Billy, Happy New Year.
Oh, man, I hope you had a great holiday season, my man, and I'm looking forward to a good 2017. And I actually, before I ask you that, I got an email that was directed to you, and it's from my man Rick. He says, can you talk, next time you talk to Larry Hazzard, can you ask him to discuss the time that he jumped into the ring to save Arturo Gatti from further punishment against Alfredo Gomez? He says, I thought that fight was long overdue for a stoppage, and I can't think of any other fight when someone else besides a cornerman or a referee jumping in the ring to stop a fight, except, of course, for the infamous Jack Johnson-Tommy Burns fight. What's your thoughts on that, man? Can you relive that for us?
Well, I've thought about that particular fight many times over the years, as I have reviewed some of the fights that have taken place here in New Jersey, as time goes on. And I can very clearly remember when that particular fight took place. As you know, Arturo Gatti was quite a warrior, and by that time, he had fought all of the great fights that he had including the fight with the kid from Massachusetts, that, those wars they had.
Mickey Ward.
And Mickey Ward, yes. And it, in my mind, sitting there, I was thinking, because the referee, Randy Newman, who himself was a former fighter. One thing that I've kind of identified with former fighters is that they do have a tendency of looking at a fight from a different perspective. As referees, most of the ones that I know do allow fights to go on a little bit longer than normally, in my opinion. And in that particular fight, as you know, Arturo Gatti had taken quite a beating from Gomez, and Gatti being Gatti, everybody I'm sure was sitting and waiting for him to, turn that situation around, which it wasn't about to happen. And I sitting there watching the fight, I didn't feel it was going to happen. Now, what happened in a particular situation, when I came into the ring, he had already been knocked down. He had already taken a battering, in that corner. He got knocked down. And I thought that Randy Newman was going to stop the fight at that particular point when he got knocked down. I thought he was going to give him a count, possibly 2 or 3 counts, and then, just stop the fight. But what he did instead, he counted all the way, okay, and then he started wiping his gloves, and it was quite obvious to me and everyone else that he was going to allow the fight to continue. And I just felt that, Gatti had had enough, and for some reason, Randy obviously thought that maybe he could, pull one of those astounding turnarounds again, which I wasn't in the business of gambling with his life at that particular point. So I was prompted to just, come up into the ring. Actually, when I came up to the apron, I thought that he would stop it then, but he didn't. So, I just didn't want to see a tragedy. It's not something that I relish doing. It's not something that I look forward to doing, but, you have to be prepared, especially if you're the commissioner or if you have that overall responsibility of overseeing anything of a dangerous nature. You have to be prepared to take action if you feel that someone else is not acting within the best interest of the individual. So that was just simply something that I felt I had to do at that point. And to this day, I never regretted it. Gotti certainly didn't complain. None of his corner people complained about it. So, I just feel that I did the right thing at that point.
Yeah, and Randy Newman, being a former fighter, probably always thinks more for the fighter. And like you said, Arturo Gatti was known for making epic comebacks, and he probably gave him that benefit of the doubt. But, without getting too, involved with it, did Newman respect you as the commissioner to stop that fight? And was there any kind of, what were you doing? I was in control. I knew what was going on. Was there anything like that? Or was it just like, hey, you were right, Larry, the fight had to be stopped? I mean, what kind of transpired after that?
No, there was no pushback on that. Randy is a guy that I always thought was a decent referee and an understandable individual. And he understands responsibility, overall responsibility. And this is something that I've always discussed with my officials, especially my referees, during our seminars and our teaching and learning sessions. I made it clear to everyone, and it's something that I'm not ashamed of. You know, the buck stops. The buck stops at the commissioner's desk, and if I feel that something needs to be done of an emergency nature to benefit the health and safety of a fighter, I'm going to do it. If that means sending the doctor in or, stopping the fight, then I'm going to do it. I mean, we can all Monday morning quarterback. That's easy to do. But I'd rather be accused of overstepping a boundary or however it wants to be described, while at the same time a fighter is still alive. I don't want to see a situation where you got a dead fighter or a seriously injured kid in the hospital, you understand, because someone possibly could have acted sooner than they did. And so, I just feel that fighter safety is a shared responsibility when it, reaches a certain point with the individual who has the immediate responsibility, and certainly that responsibility never, is out of the hands of the commissioner, who actually has the ultimate responsibility over everything. So that's my attitude, and that's my thought pattern on the situation.
I agree with you. I mean, when you have your fan hat on, nobody wants to see a fight stopped too soon. But, in the overall picture of things, it's better to stop a fight too soon than too late, So I agree with you on that. Hey, Larry, a couple of things. First and foremost, real quickly, if you had a chance to just, review in your mind real quick the sport of boxing in 2016, would you say that it was a positive or a negative?
I would say I would have to lean a little bit to the positive side, in that we did begin to see some of the better fights take place. I hope that it continues, because what's going to happen if the sport of boxing continues down that old road of fighters ducking viable opponents, managers and promoters, protecting fighters and not putting on the best fights, then there's a good chance that the sport of boxing will no longer exist. I believe that there are too many fighters with undefeated records, because to me, that's an indication that the best fighters are not always fighting the best. There are too many with undefeated records. And let we get out of this mindset, which I did sort of see a change in the mindset of a loss being the end of a career. See, as long as we remain along that track, I think that there's positive things ahead for the sport of boxing. And I think we have to continue to forge ahead in that direction. The best fighters must fight the best fighters. And that should be our overall goal and mission going forward in 2007.
Well,
and I think that the fans are going to welcome that.
Well, with that said, what is your predictions or projections for boxing in 2017? Do you think it is going to head? I mean, let's face it. The whole O thing was incorporated with Floyd Mayweather. He made that successful for himself. And then, of course, we're creatures of, copycat creatures, and we see the success that Floyd had both inside the ring and financially. So, of course, everybody puts a value in the O. I don't mean to blame it on him, but a lot of the blame does have to be pointed to him because it's misinterpreted, that whole thing is something that we got to take a look at. I just lost Larry here. We're going to see if we can't get him back. But not that I want to blame Floyd Mayweather. I lost you there. Yeah, I lost you there for a second. But I don't know when the last thing. But what you were saying, do you think that 2017 will be heading in the right direction, or what?
Yeah, I think so. What you were saying last, you were saying you don't mean to blame everyone cherishing and putting such great value in the O on Floyd Mayweather. Okay, well, Floyd, and I agree to.
What I said, what I finished was I said he capitalized on it and was successful in and out of the ring, and then of course people want to emulate that. They want us to share in his success, but I think they misinterpreted the point that he was a marketing machine, et cetera, and what's happened is, like you were saying, exactly what you said. There's too many O's in the sport, and it's not a good thing. If they were O's because they were beating all the best and they were undefeated, that's a different story. We wouldn't be having this conversation. But they're avoiding tough fights to avoid the possibility of losing that O.
Yes, and I think that paradigm is going to change. Okay, because I think that more and more the powers that be realize that the sport of boxing, its livelihood is on the line. And there's too many people, making their living from this sport. And I'm talking about the promoters, the networks, and, the Al Heyman types, etc. That they realize that they just have to change that mindset. And the best fights have to be made. And I think that your top promoters, Bob Arum, Main Events, Al Heyman, Oscar De La Hoya, all of those guys, they have to have that Bernard Hopkins mentality, so to speak, where they have to the best guys got to call out the best fights. I mean, if that doesn't happen, Billy, then we're going to see a demise in the sport of boxing. Okay. Well, I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's going to be similar to some of the other sports that were popular, very popular years ago, and that are no longer popular.
Well, maybe
you know what I mean.
Well, maybe it has to do with society in general. And let me throw this at you. There was an article written in the news, and it was forwarded to me by one of our main listeners. He's a contributor to our show, my man Coach. And basically what it is, Larry, I hope you're sitting down because I hope you have your garbage pail close by because you may want to throw up in it. But, before I tell you what's going on, one of the things I've always said about the punch stats is that I don't believe that punch stats are true because it's the human element. You and I can watch the same punch and you could say it grazed, I could say it landed solid, and so on and so forth. And unless they review the tapes frame by frame of every fight and see if a punch landed or not, the stats are subjective. But I always said that when you could take that human element out of it, if we develop some kind of gloves with sensors in it, and some kind of receiving apparatus that a fighter could have on their body where it could actually track a punch that's landed and it's cut and dry, and then it becomes a statistic, and I would be all for it. With that mindset, apparently there's a new version of boxing taking place right now, and they believe that it's going to be the future of the sport. And what it is a high-tech approach to boxing from its original point where it started out as fencing. And what this is, basically in a nutshell, Larry, is that the gloves are big gloves, big and puffy gloves, and they have sensors in them. And the fighters will wear basically a T-shirt that has the receiving units in it. And the way the boxing will take place is that you're not allowed to hit to the head. You'll be wearing headgear, but you're not allowed to hit to the head. And the impact of the punches mean nothing. It's just a matter of whether the punch lands or not. It's called new low-impact boxing. And it's something that they're referring to as boxing tag. And they believe that this will take over the sport and get more people interested in the sport. What's your thoughts on this? Basically, they said headgear is done, but punches at the head are not allowed. The low-impact gloves are worn to reduce the force behind punches. There's no incentive to physically harm your opponent, as is the boxer who lands the most punches, regardless of the force, wins the bout. What's your thoughts?
Well, I have a very intense feeling of nausea just listening.
I told you. I hope you had your garbage pail close.
That to me is about as ridiculous, as anything I've ever heard in my life. Okay. Well, first off, it's no longer boxing. What you just described, it's really no longer boxing.
Yeah, but you see, here's the thing. Think about the argument that you get from a lot of young fans today. When I say, well, I watched an exciting fight, I'll use Triple G. Oh, that's not boxing, Billy C. Boxing is, you got to avoid being hit. They leave that other part out of it where you kind of have to be in position to inflict damage, and they look at it as, quality, sparring, boxing, showing your ability to avoid punches. So in a sense, could this be attractive to these young fans?
First of all, let me say that I hope not. Okay, I really hope not. But anything is possible. But I really, really don't believe anything as nonsensical as that is ever going to replace what we have. Okay, I think that the first thing we need to stop trying to get too technical with the sport. And I don't want to be accused of just being so old school that I'm not willing to, move into the future. First off, I've always been someone who felt that there are too many people getting involved with the sport of boxing, trying to promote it to some scientific level where it doesn't belong. Who needs punch stats, number one? Okay? When they came along with these punch stats, every time a punch is thrown and it lands on the gloves or the arm of the opponent, it's counted. Okay? It's ridiculous, these punch stats and all of this other stuff that's going on. And, I think that if we just concentrate on possibly improving, the basic elements of the sport that all of us enjoy, and once again, put the best matches together, the sport of boxing is going to be revived to the point where it once was. And as far as these young fans are concerned, they will probably then have a greater appreciation for the sport. That's what my feelings are.
Well, what could be happening here is that the fan base, or I should say fan bases, may be looking at MMA as more of a brutal sport, and now they want to see something not as brutal, and they're looking at boxing to fill that void. I don't know. I hope you're right. I hope something like this never happens, at least while I'm walking this planet. If we think things are bad now, forget about it. But one last thing I wanted to ask you. The whole situation with Alexander Povetkin. Apparently, I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, but he's elected to have his B sample opened and all of this stuff. My main question to you is, what's the story? I mean, obviously, it's not looking good for Alexander Povetkin. It seems like he's trying to find ways of cheating, not to put the blame on all Russian fighters, but it certainly seems like a lot of Russian fighters test positive, or if you have the unfortunate schedule to go to Russia to fight, all of a sudden you're testing positive. I mean, what's your thoughts on this whole fiasco? Should he test? Should his B sample come out clean? Does he get a fight with Deontay? Does the WBC make him fight somebody else? I mean, what do we need to do with this guy?
Well, if the B sample comes out clean, then what's the next step? If the B sample now you got one sample that's dirty and one sample that's clean. So how do you what do they do now to make a determination? Do they now say, okay, the B sample is clean, something was wrong with the A sample? Okay, if that's it, then give them a chance then. Let them, move forward. But as far as Russian fighters, I mean, Russian athletes, the Russian athletes have been known to be dirty, not just boxing, other sports. So it doesn't surprise me, that Povetkin is playing that game. But I feel that, okay, open the B sample. Okay, it'll probably be dirty also. But if it's clean, then if that exonerates him this time around, okay, let's move forward. Because as you know, this is not the first time around for him.
I know. That's what I'm saying. How many chances you get? This is a boy who cried wolf, man. I don't know. It's only in boxing. And then what do? You make him fight again? Do you give him an immediate shot at Wilder? I mean, Wilder's already scheduled to fight. And then there'll always be that cloud. Was he clean? Should he win? Should he fight Wilder and win? Was he clean? I don't know. But I don't know, my man. But listen, we'll look forward to chatting with you next week. And we're going to be doing a lot more post-fight shows this year, and our first one is going to be behind a good fight, Bedeau Jack against James DeGale, which is next weekend. I'm looking forward to that. Maybe that answers a lot of our questions for boxing in 2017. I certainly hope so.
Yeah. That's. That certainly, without a doubt, is a good fight, and it's supposed to unify all the belts. So at least we're starting off in a good direction, Billy.
Exactly.
And I think that if we keep that up, we're going to see a major turnaround in 2017.
I hope so, man. I got my fingers and toes and everything crossed. So we'll be looking forward to you next week, brother.
Okay, Billy. Me too.
All right, Larry. Take care.
Okay.
That's Boxing Hall of Famer Larry Hazzard, also New Jersey boxing commissioner, giving us his thoughts. And I told him to have that garbage pail near him. I knew he was going to feel nauseous. I hope he didn't have an egg sandwich or something close by. But, hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Alex is going to join us. We're going to be doing a blast from the past as requested. Former heavyweight champ Pinklon Thomas. I'll be back in 2.
The Billy C. Morning Show will be right back.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out their ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
Beat Joe Lewis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh?
What? We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening to the Billy C. Morning Show. Glad you could be with us today. A special shout out to our viewers on Fight TV. We're glad to be part of Fight TV's programming. And, of course, all of our listeners from ESPN New Hampshire. We're glad to be part of you guys for as long as we have. So we value that. But right now, It's time for
Blast from the Past. We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
top-ranking heavyweight. Joe Louis is the leading contender.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time. Look at that left hook. Belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
And this week's Blast from the Past, which is being sponsored by the Title Bout Championship computer game. Download a copy today by visiting our website, www.billycboxing.com, and clicking on the Title Bout Championship computer game banner, which is on the left-hand side, and KOFantasyBoxing.com. Check it out. Sign up today, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Features former world heavyweight champion Pinklon Thomas. We were requested to do a blast on Pinky. And if you have a request, just feel free to drop me an email, and we'll do it. And joining me right now to tell us all about Pinklon Thomas is my man, Alex Perpali. Happy New Year, Alex. I hope everything went well for you, brother.
Thanks, Billy C. Happy New Year to you, too. Yeah, I hope you had a nice one as well.
Yeah, I had a great holiday. Until I got sick, and I was thought I was never going to breathe another breath come Monday when we were supposed to return, but nonetheless, I'm back today, so that's good stuff. But anyway, it's that time. You know what happens real quick. We get hit with a winter, right? The winter starts, and then after a short period of time, it starts to depress you, because you say to, like right now, everybody's already sick of winter here in the Northeast, and the sad news is you got 3 more months of it. We just skimmed the surface, and it's like, oh man. So I can see why people get those winter blues,
Oh yeah. We've only had one snowstorm so far where I am, and we've just been, there's like midway through Connecticut has been the rain-snow line, so some parts of Connecticut have gotten some more snow, but just the past couple of days, we've had a really cold, raw rain, like 37 degrees raining, and we're going to get that probably for another month, and then we'll have the snow, because it seems like the winter starts a little later now.
Yeah, we're a month off. We're a month off than when we were kids, and I'm an advocate for the almanac. And I got some bad news for you. The Almanac is predicting February for being unseasonably cold. We are scheduled to get a blizzard in February. And for the last 15 years or so, the Almanac has been pretty accurate, give or take a week. And I'm curious to see if they come true again this year. But anyway, Pinklon Thomas, Angelo Dundee had said one time that he had one of the best jabs in boxing since Sonny Liston. Tell us about this guy.
Yeah, that was a quote that I did hear even Larry Merchant repeat that in one of the fights I was watching last night. Pinklon Thomas, he was born on February 10th, 1958, and he's 6'3" tall and fought as a heavyweight. He was born in Pontiac, Michigan. Grew up in a pretty rough area of Pontiac, Michigan, and had some really difficult times even as a youngster. He tried heroin at 11 years old, and by 12, he was an addict. And he had been trying to be cool, look cool with kids 5 to 7 years older than him. And so he got into drugs, alcohol, pills, but mostly it was heroin. And there was one morning where he woke up in the morning, and on the bedstand next to him was a bloody needle that he had left in the basement, and a note from his mother saying, "What do you call this?" But it took him a while to get himself together. It wasn't for a few more years, actually. There was a little more trouble. At 17, he got married. He married his wife, Kathy. They were high school sweethearts. And then he had a dispute with his father. His father got his Social Security check in 1975 when Thomas was 17, and Pinklon Thomas said to him, I figure $100 of that check is mine. And his father carried a gun, and at the time he carried a gun too, and they actually drew guns on each other, and it wasn't, it was the females in the Thomas family that calmed them down. Pinklon Thomas's mother got the father back into the house, and Kathy Thomas got Pinklon into the car, and they drove away, and they moved to Washington State, and Kathy was in the service and she was stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington. They moved to Tillicum, Washington, and it was there. So, I mean, these are two young kids, 17 years old. Well, at least Pinklon was 17. She must have been a little older, because I think you have to be 18 to get into the military. But
Actually, you used to be able to get in earlier if your parents gave a consent. I think maybe it was 17, but anyway, go ahead.
So they were young people there in Washington, and it was there that he claimed that he could fight, and he went into a gym, and he ended up sparring with a guy. I'll actually just read the quote. That sounds pretty good. I was almost 20 years old and scuffling. I told the guy in the projects where we were living that I had 15 fights, 15-0 as an amateur, I said. A lie. I'd never fought a lick. Told him I came out of the Brewster in Detroit, which is a project and a gym, and a place where Joe Louis used to go to. Anyway, this fellow worked with the Parks and Recreation Department in Seattle. He knew a couple of trainers and sent me to their gym. One of them took one look at me and busted out laughing. He said, "You ain't had no fights." I told him, "No, I ain't never fought. But that's all right, I'll be back." And evidently he got the worst of some sparring on that first occasion in the gym. And instead of being discouraged, it motivated him. He returned to boxing. That was November of 1977. And by August of 78, just about 9 or 10 months later, with only 3 amateur fights of experience, he turned professional.
And a 6-round fight, no doubt.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing that he even accomplished that. Like you said, he was a heroin addict by the time he was 14. And but the good note about the boxing is it got him on the straight and narrow for a while. When he did start boxing at 19, he quit the drugs and kind of turned his life around. And he was real successful in the beginning of his career, wasn't he, Alex? Because he did really well. All the way up until he won the title. The only blemish on his record, if you call a draw a blemish, was against Jerry Coetzee.
Yeah, who was top ranked at the time. The biggest problems I think that he's had were medical issues. Despite, like you said, despite overcoming heroin addiction, which is enormous, that's more than enough for someone to do in any lifetime. But to bounce back from a drug like that. But not only had he come back from it, but then he came back from some really severe hand injuries. He broke both his hands in a fight with Jerry Williams, and throughout his career he had 3 operations on his left hand and 1 operation on his right hand. He hooked up with Don King. And, there's a lot of people that say a lot of negative things about Don King. Pinklon Thomas is not one of them. Pinklon Thomas attributes a lot of his success and, just the fact that Don King believed in him and stuck with him and stayed in his corner. And it was King that got him into the HBO boxing heavyweight unification tournament that they were running in the 80s. And, unfortunately, he did not have that much success there. He did have the big win over Mike Weaver, but he ends up dropping a decision to Trevor Berbick in a fight that I think he was a little uninspired for that fight. The thing that was interesting, and this is other heavyweights have done this in the past as well, with varying degrees of success, but he wanted to become a recording artist. and evidently you could find him in the days before the Berbick fight, hanging around the hotel, selling cassette tapes of his. And for the kids out there, cassette tapes used to be something that music came on. He was selling cassette tapes of his single. The name of the song was where'd it go? "Hanging On to Promises."
Why is it that athletes want to be musicians and musicians want to be athletes? I mean, it's happened so much, you know. I never could put my finger on that.
It's true. It's true.
But you know,
they like the limelight, but they want a different version.
Exactly, they want a different color light on them, I guess. But you know, not only did he have a good jab, he had some pop behind his punch, and he did develop into a good fighter. And his rise to the top rankings was no easy one. I mean, he was beating some good fighters, Alex. You know, James Quick Tillis was 22-1 when he fought him in '82 and knocked him out, which Mike Tyson wasn't able to do. And Jerry Coetzee, he had the draw with him, which really, like I said earlier, was the only blemish on his record until he lost that fight with Trevor Berbick. And along the way, you know, he beat Alonzo Ratliff, which is he was a good fighter. I remember him being a pretty big guy at that time, and he beat terrible Tim Witherspoon for the WBC title, and then beat Mike Weaver, Hercules, stopped him in 8 before he lost his title to Trevor Berbick, who, you know, you might be right. He might have taken that fight a little lightly because, if you recall, Trevor Berbick was a big underdog in that fight. Everybody wasn't giving Berbick much of a chance to win that fight, and he ended up beating Pinklon Thomas with a 12-round decision.
True. And yeah, that the win over Mike Weaver was a very impressive one. I mean, it was a pretty decent fight. Weaver was 33, so it was sort of a hopeful comeback for Weaver that he was going to regain the heavyweight title or a heavyweight title. And Pinklon Thomas put him down in the first round. And that was one of the things about it was at the time, you know, especially after the win over Witherspoon, mainly what he displayed against Witherspoon was just this beautiful jab. And he really does have an impressive jab. It's something wonderful about watching.
And Witherspoon had a good jab himself.
He did, and that fight was like a jabbing duel. It had some dull moments, but it was pretty entertaining. I didn't watch the whole thing last night, but I watched a lot of it. But then the fight with Mike Weaver was pretty exciting. There's times where Mike Weaver hurts him. He had a pretty good chin, Pinklon Thomas, which of course was very evident when he fought Mike Tyson. But in that Mike Weaver fight, he puts Weaver down in the first round with a big right hand, and he surprised everyone with this huge right hand. And at one point, after he had broken his hands, he was not known as a big right hand puncher. But after breaking his right hand, he became friends with Zhong Li, who was a martial arts expert, and he taught Pinklon Thomas a scientific method using the laws of physics and geometry to get maximum power. And I guess what he was helping Pinklon Thomas do was to turn his waist after firing the right, which would force your shoulder to follow through. And in that fight with Mike Weaver, it's pretty impressive. That 8th round, it's a one-punch, big right-hand knockout.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget that. And Mike Weaver was no slouch. I mean, he had double-digit losses going into that fight, but Mike Weaver was a very underrated fighter throughout his career. So that was a huge win for him. He loses to Berbick. He gets back up on his horse and puts himself in a position to fight Mike Tyson in 1987. And for all intent purposes, Alex, I really believe that was kind of the end of his career, because after the knockout loss to Mike Tyson, in May of 1987. He went on to fight some big names in Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe, but he was never the same. I mean, all you got to do is look at his resume and see that, going into the Mike Tyson fight, the only two blemishes was the loss to Berbick, which was a 12-round decision, and a draw, if you call a draw a blemish. And then after that fight, after the Mike Tyson fight, he adds another 6 losses to his resume. So I really don't think he was the same fighter after that, never to return to where he was.
No, and yeah, whether you could call the Mike Tyson loss that it took a lot out of him, or it just was that boxing was not his priority at that point. It's hard to say, but I'd say the combination of the two. But yeah, going into the fight with Mike Tyson, he at the time was probably the best fighter that Mike Tyson had ever fought. He had suffered a shoulder injury in training for that fight, and Angelo Dundee actually wanted to postpone the fight, but he thought that he could beat Tyson just with the jab alone. And actually, when you watch that fight, after surviving an absolutely brutal first round, where it's hard to believe that Tyson, when you watch that first round against Pinklon Thomas, Tyson almost gets him in the first round, but for Thomas's decent chin. But then, as you watch the fight continue, Thomas starts winning rounds. And actually, if you look at the 4th and 5th, Larry Merchant even comments about how, that's another round for Pinklon Thomas. Mike Tyson's having a hard time getting past the jab. And it's before that 6th round that, because it was one of those fights where Kevin Rooney was trying to get Mike Tyson to do more jabbing of his own. And Mike was having a hard time timing Thomas. And when he goes back to the corner after the 5th round, you hear Kevin Rooney say to him, "Bad intentions, baby, bad intentions." In a way, it was almost as if he was saying, let's work on the jab some other night. Just get this guy out of here.
Right.
And he went out there in that 6th round and did. And, the combination, it's one of the more impressive Tyson knockout flourishes. I think it's about 16 unanswered punches. And it is just one after the other crashing against the face of Pinklon Thomas, and Pinky finally goes down at the end of it.
I remember watching that fight and going, "Poor Pinky." He was just beaten up bad. But you got to give Pinklon Thomas credit, and maybe his history of beating heroin once. Got him back up on the horse, because after the Mike Tyson loss, he did have a couple of more losses throughout the 80s and early 90s. But in 1992, after his loss to Tommy Morrison in February of 91, he didn't fight again until May of 1992, where he claims that he cleaned himself up. He did have a relapse with drugs or whatever. And then he rattled off, which is unprecedented today, 13 wins in a row, Alex, all in 1992. 13 times he fought. Now, granted, they were against some pretty sacrificial lambs, collection of sacrificial lambs. But in November of 1992, he fought for the very first IBO world heavyweight title. Now, be as it may, it was against a 9-fight fighter, 6-1-2 Craig Payne. But he did win that title, which a lot of people regard today as a major belt. Maybe not so much back then. But that would be his last win, because his final fight was a loss to a 21-5 Lawrence Carter via 7th-round knockout, never to return to the ring again. Yeah, you're right. And it was that was a nice little run that he had there. He was hoping to get back into the title picture with a string of victories, and hoping to get back, another title shot, even though some of them were against, less than notable opposition. But you're right. He had a relapse with drugs and alcohol, cocaine in '89. It was cocaine and alcohol, and on February 10th, 1989,
he went sober, and evidently he's been sober ever since then. He's been clean and sober since then, since February 10th of '89, and he put that streak together with a promoter. He went on. I should mention also that Tommy Morrison fight. He got hit pretty hard. He ends up being stopped before round 2. It was a brutal cut that Morrison opened up in the first round, and actually that quite a few of his fights are on YouTube. And if you search, actually, you might want to be careful because if you just search Pinky, what you're very likely to find is Pinky the Cat, which is one of my favorite viral videos. But after you watch that, make sure you watch the Pinklon Thomas fight.
After you watch that, he says.
After you watch that.
Yeah. After you watch Pinky the Cat, then go back to what you were originally searching for, Pinklon Thomas, you know. But
Pinky the Cat is one of the funnier videos, viral videos out there. But yeah, you're right. He went on that Southern Circuit hoping to get a title shot, and he had a string of 13. He was 13-0 with 10 KOs. 6 of them he scored in the first round before meeting that 232-pound Lawrence Carter in Columbia, South Carolina. And of course, supposedly, I read an article, a 2013 article. He actually had a 2010 article. I'm sorry. He actually had bleeding on the brain from that Lawrence Carter fight when he was brought to the hospital after the knockout, and they looked at the CAT scan and they said, if this bleeding doesn't stop, we're going to have to operate. And by 6 a.m. that morning, the bleeding had stopped. And if you're a religious man like Pinklon Thomas is, then you can't help but see the hand of God as moving there to stop that bleeding.
Yeah, well, he had been stopped, by, you mentioned Morrison, and then Mike Tyson, Holyfield, Riddick Bowe. I mean, these are all hard punches, and then culminating with the Lawrence Carter fight. And in that 13-fight win streak that he had, there were a lot of, like I said, sacrificial lambs that were fed to him. But one of them, that he actually, the guy he went the distance, or one of the 2 guys he went the distance with, was a pretty slick veteran in Danny Sutton. That was early on, 29 wins, 18 losses. Took Pinklon Thomas the full 10 rounds. But he was positioning himself for another world title shot. And would he have gotten by Lawrence Carter? I think he was in line for that, or at least, another big payday. Don't know how he did financially overall. Do you?
I didn't read anything about his finances, but he right now he does motivational talks about drugs. He talks to youths, and he has a group called Project Pink, and it's the Pink stands for Pride in Neighborhood Kids. This was as of 2010 that he started it. It's a nonprofit group that helps youth. He does have a presence on Facebook.
Yeah, good deal. He was inducted into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in 2009, and I think Pinklon Thomas is a forgotten fighter, Alex. I mean, when I think of Pinklon Thomas, I got to be honest. I think of the knockout that Mike Tyson handed him. I really don't think of anything else. I don't even. I got to be honest when I say I don't even think of his great jab. And it's a shame because he was a good fighter, and during an era in which the heavyweight division was in a kind of a stagnant state, because until Mike Tyson came along, you had these guys, the Pinklon Thomases, the Witherspoons, the Mike Weavers, those guys, no disrespect to them, but they weren't exactly exciting fighters during that era. And Pinklon Thomas was probably the best of those guys,
Yeah, I think at that time, Larry Holmes was getting a little old, and at that, while he was sort of fading, and being a little more choosy about who he was fighting. You had the Tony Tubbs, you had Tim Witherspoon, you had Pinklon Thomas, Trevor Berbick. You had a lot of other guys squabbling over the other titles. So yeah, and it did seem almost, now looking back, it's almost as if the heavyweight division was in a holding pattern, waiting for a savior, which we got in that 5'10" kid from Brownsville. But I do think that Pinklon Thomas was definitely one of the top guys at the time. There's no doubt about it. He wanted very badly to get Larry Holmes in the ring.
Why didn't that fight ever happen?
It came close. It was probably closest after after he beat Tim Witherspoon. It never, and then the route that he went was the heavyweight title, the heavyweight unification tournament. And the idea of that, because remember, in that unification tournament, I think that was mainly started up after the second Michael Spinks-Larry Holmes fight. So Larry Holmes was sort of, once he had ended up tangling with Michael Spinks, there wasn't as much interest in fighting Larry Holmes because now he didn't have a title.
Right. And then the Mike Tyson fight happened, and
then Tyson beat Berbick.
Right, so, when Tyson beat Berbick, the whole focus just shifted on him, But
and that was '86, right? Because Spinks had beaten Holmes in '85. But yeah, he definitely, like I said, if you watch the fight with Weaver, his jab's beautiful. It's really a terrific jab. And it was effective against Mike Tyson, and that was, the Mike Tyson that, we look back now, that was the prime Mike Tyson.
How did Pinky do in the title bout game?
He did pretty well, actually. Against Tyson Fury, the first time they fought, Fury won by knockout, 11th round knockout, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Fury had Thomas down in the 5th, 7th, and 10th, and then twice in the 11th, so he was really all over him. But when they fight 100 times, Pinklon Thomas gets the better of Tyson Fury. Thomas goes 63 wins, 29 defeats, 8 draws, 39 KOs, and of those 29 victories, Fury scored 10 knockouts. Against Vladimir Klitschko, the first time they fought, Vlad won a unanimous decision, three scores of 115, 112, all for Vlad. And Pinklon Thomas was actually able to put Klitschko down in the 6th. When they fight 100 times, Klitschko gets the better of Thomas. Thomas goes 29 victories, 69 defeats, 2 draws, and 25 KOs. Vlad had 39 KOs in his 69 victories. Against Anthony Joshua, there's so many heavyweight titleists now and guys in the top that, there's a lot of guys to put him in against. Against Anthony Joshua, the first time they fought, Anthony Joshua won a majority decision, 1 score, 115 all, 2 scores of 114, 113, and 115, 113 for Joshua. When they fight 100 times, Pinklon Thomas gets the better of Joshua. Thomas goes 77 wins, 21 defeats, 2 draws, scores 62 knockouts. Anthony Joshua scored 13 knockouts in his 21 victories. Against Luis, the real King Kong Ortiz, the first time they fought, Pinklon Thomas wins a unanimous decision, 116, 113, 115, 114, and 117, 114. No knockdowns in that fight. When they fight 100 times, Thomas dominates, 80 victories, 16 defeats, 4 draws, with 26 knockouts. Of his 16 victories, Ortiz had 13 KOs. And lastly, he against Deontay Wilder, the first time they fight, Pinklon Thomas scores a big knockout. Actually, it was a TKO. He stopped him on cuts. He had cut him in the second round with a punch, and they ended up stopping the fight at 13 seconds of round number 4. When they fight 100 times, Pinklon Thomas dominates, 80 victories, 18 defeats, 2 draws, 68 big wins by knockout. Wilder had 12 KOs in his 18 wins.
Wow. I'm shocked that he did that well.
Yeah, he did really well.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy that he didn't get the better of was Klitschko. You know,
Yeah.
he dominates Joshua and Ortiz and Wilder. Wow, interesting. But Pinklon Thomas, our blast from the past this weekend, he was a former WBC and IBO world champion. He was inducted into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in 2009. And don't forget, if you have a request for a blast from the past, just drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. And once again, Alex, great job with that. A couple of things I wanted to ask you. First and foremost, one of my topics today, or at least the main topic, is looking forward to the Triple G Daniel Jacobs fight. I know we got a lot of time, but it is on my mind. My question, is it going to be competitive in your opinion? At least the way you look at it today.
I think it should be. I thought that Peter Quillen would defeat Danny Jacobs. So when Danny Jacobs handled him so well, so easily, even though, you could say a first-round knockout, anything could happen, but I don't know. I think that he's so, that was so convincing that I was a little surprised that Jacobs is better than I thought he was, I think. I'd have to admit that. Against Triple G, I'm not sure if he's that good, because that's a lot. Triple G is one of the most fearsome fighters in the sport right now. So I don't know. I do think he has some of the skills that, one would want to try to keep Golovkin off you. But I think that's quite a long task. I think that he does. I think he ends up doing better than people think, but I think Golovkin wins probably a late round stoppage. I see it kind of looking maybe a little bit like the Martin Murray fight, where Murray hung in there for a while and really gave it his all and was pretty talented, or at least was one of the more talented guys Golovkin had fought before he succumbed to the Triple G assault.
Daniel Jacobs, he's got hand speed, he's got pop, and he's got accuracy. What he doesn't have is a chin. Sergio Mora knocked him down. I think if he fights cautiously, and this is the way I'm looking at it now, I think if he fights cautiously, that's actually playing into Triple G's game. Because I don't believe anyone in the sport of boxing, not only today, but in the last decade at least, shows the ring generalship that Triple G shows. He's able to control the ring. He's right in his opponent's face when his opponent tries to avoid him. Bam, he's there. If his opponent goes to the right, he's there. If he goes to the left, he's there. He anticipates what his opponent's going to do. And at times he's been cocky in the ring to a degree. I'm talking about Triple G, by letting fighters hit him like Willie Monroe Jr. I don't think he'll let, or he better not let Daniel Jacobs hit him. But personally, I said earlier, and I really believe this is the only way Daniel Jacobs can beat Triple G, is to jump all over him. Catch him maybe if he's cold. I don't think that Triple G is going to come in over confident. That's just not his makeup, because that also would be Daniel Jacobs, in his favor. I really think that he's got to have a game plan similar to the Kid Chocolate fight, and hope that he can catch Triple G off guard or a little cold and stun him and finish him off. I personally don't think it's going to happen. I think this fight won't get into the 6th round, but I hope it does. I hope Daniel Jacobs proves me wrong, and I think it's going to be a big test for Triple G, not in regards of the opponent, but in regards of can he maintain the discipline that he has shown us throughout his career. And I think this fight is going to be important along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is that if he attacks him early, I do think that that's probably his best chance is to come out, blazing, because he's definitely one of the better guys Golovkin has fought in terms of speed and just overall skill. So it'll be interesting to see how Golovkin deals with that. But no, like you said, I don't see Golovkin taking him lightly or anything like that, or being overconfident. Golovkin is a grinder. I think that he takes everybody seriously. He's always in top shape, and I do think that he will, give him the, he's the kind of guy that he'd rather over-prepare than under-prepare. Golovkin, I remember seeing him when he didn't have a fight. He was still, sending photos to the different websites of training in Big Bear when he wasn't even prepping for a fight because his father passed away. I remember there was that little period where he didn't fight because he for a while he was fighting 3 times a year, and then I can't remember if it was this year or last year, he fought only twice, but he was still in Big Bear. So he's the kind of guy that he's a gym rat. He's a perfectionist. I do think that he's going to beat Jacobs and beat him by knockout. But I do think that Jacobs should give him. We should see a little more of Triple G in terms of what he can do and understand his capability more with this opponent.
Now that you had a week or so to let it sink in and digest. I'm not talking about your Christmas meal. I'm talking about boxing in 2016. What do you think, man? Was it a good year or a bad year?
I just saw last night the Boxing Channel. I don't know if they're a website or if they're I think it's something Al Bernstein.
Yeah, it's Al Bernstein's channel. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's his YouTube channel. He posted something on Facebook, a collection of KOs of the year. And it was pretty impressive. And watching all those knockouts, you just say, maybe it wasn't that bad of a year, I think, for me, the biggest disappointment were the heavyweights. And I couldn't help but thinking about that today, while doing Pinklon Thomas, is that, the thing about the heavyweights in the 80s, maybe they weren't all that great, but they fought each other.
Yep.
This year, it just seems... I just was truly disappointed in Tyson Fury. And the fact that we didn't get that rematch with Klitschko, and we didn't see him fight Deontay Wilder. We didn't see Deontay Wilder fight again because of his injury. He only fought once early in the year. So there was a lot of things. And then, there was rumors that we're going to get the Anthony Joshua fight with Klitschko instead of Tyson Fury, and then it falls through. And then Luis Ortiz was just a tremendous bust in the times he was in the ring. So I do think that, for me, that was my biggest disappointment. That wasn't Trump-related this past year, was the heavyweight division was just pretty piss-poor. But I think the thing that you did see this year were some pretty tremendous fights. I mean, the Orlando Salido-Francisco Vargas fight, of course, is, I think, hands down fight of the year. It was scary. I mean, it was like watching a horror movie. Towards the end of it, you just couldn't believe what both those guys were enduring. So we, as long as there's good fights, I think our sport is going to keep doing all right.
Well, what's your projections or predictions for 2017? Is it going to continue? Do you think it's going to be a good year, or you think it's going to continue downward, or am I wrong? Are we on the upward swing? How do you see this year going?
I think the best thing, about us is that we, is if we get good matchups, and so far the schedule looks like we have some decent ones. So I do think that. You never know because there's always injuries. There's all kinds of things that can happen. I mean, the Tyson Fury stuff, that was all unexpected, that he would implode like that and then rob us of seeing, what would happen with the Undisputed Championship, the premier, the greatest prize in sports, which is sort of made into a laughingstock this year because of his addictions. But I do think that, the Carl Frampton Leo Santa Cruz rematch. That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. And I do think that that's somebody who probably does deserve Fighter of the Year is Carl Frampton. I'm looking forward to seeing them meet again. Their first fight was just absolutely brilliant. So I do think that the sport has some good stuff on the horizon. You never know until it happens. That's the beauty of it, is that it's not like wrestling where it's scripted. You don't know what's going to happen until they fight the fights.
Yeah, we hope that's still the case. And finally, it was a topic that my man Coach directed me to, and it's very disheartening. I don't know if you caught it, but the new version of boxing, which is starting to take off. It's in Sydney, Australia right now. It's called Low Impact Boxing, and it features a high-tech approach to a safer, low impact version of boxing. And what scares me about this is that it screams the argument that a lot of young fans throw at me when I say that what Floyd Mayweather does is not the sweet science. And when I say that, I don't mean his part of avoiding punches defensively. I mean his part of avoiding a punch defensively by getting out of not only harm's way, but getting out of his own distance of inflicting damage on his opponent. Something that, the definition of the sweet science today leaves out that last part. Yes, you're supposed to avoid punches from your opponent, but you're also supposed to maintain your position of inflicting damage on your opponent. This version of boxing eliminates trying to render your opponent unconscious. It almost goes back to even a worse version of the amateur level of boxing, when the scoring system was just recently revamped, where they just put this emphasis on a punch. If it knocks you down, or whether it's a jab, it gets the same amount of value in terms of a point system. And that's typically what is taking place with this. What's your view on it? Do you think it has any substance? Do you think that today's fan will accept this? And if so, what would you do?
I don't think it will be accepted in any kind of broad sense of popularity, because, in terms of when you think about just the violence of boxing, that's not turning people off, because it's turning some people off in terms of maybe network executives or something like that. But I don't think you could make that argument anymore with the success of UFC. A friend of mine was saying that him and his family went out to dinner on Christmas Eve, and the place they went was so crowded they ended up sitting in the bar. And the family just got together and they sat at the bar, and they had a nice Christmas Eve dinner. No big deal. However, in the bar they had all these big screen TVs all around them, and they were showing a UFC fight. And he said it wasn't long before him and his family were having their nice Christmas Eve dinner to just horrible, bloody faces on the screens all around them. So it was like Christmas Eve with facial injuries. So if there's anything UFC isn't, it's nonviolent. So the idea that, we're trying to make boxing safer, that's not going to help its appeal any. I think people like UFC because it's violent. People like boxing because it's violent. Starting a new sport where the object is more strategic, maybe you'll develop fans for that. But you're not going to take boxing fans away. You're not going to take, UFC fans away to go to something that's less, a lower impact sport. I just don't buy that.
Well, here's my fear, and you just said it. I think what's happened is that a lot of young fans of combat sports in general have accepted the violence of MMA. and UFC. And boxing now, they're trying to reshape into this skill of not being hit, bouncing and running and not being hit. There's where my fear lies, Alex, that they're actually looking for the violence that we used to get out of boxing, and they're getting it at an MMA. And now boxing is evolving into a more safe sport. You know, and it's the same anti-violence, anti-injury attitude that's affecting all sports. You know, they want to do away with the kickoff in the NFL. They have concussion protocols. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that's all fine and well. I think it's great that they have the intelligence now and the history of seeing what causes these down the road injuries and stuff. But at the end of the day, the sport is the sport. You can't take away what the sport is about because of fear of injury. And, you know, I just think that boxing has this negative feel around it because it's been around so long. The data's there. They can back it up with statistics. Whereas MMA and UFC, you know, I was just noticing Ronda Rousey, when she was leaving after getting whooped again, you know, she's got a cauliflower ear already. This is a girl that's fought, less than 12 fights? Not even, right? And she's already, permanently damaged in terms of physical from a cauliflower ear, which was, pretty common in boxing. But, I just think that I'm just afraid that we're making this transition, and I'm definitely this is a red flag for me that somebody's even thinking of changing the sport to that degree.
Yeah, it's weird, and I think the only good thing about it is that you might get legitimate punch stats from it.
I agree with that. I agree with that, but totally in the wrong arena that I was looking for. You know, I mean, and it will give you amount of punches landed, but it doesn't matter with the impact of the punch. So if I tag you with a jab, that's equal to a power punch. So in a sense, they're doing away with power punches. Why do you need to use up that energy and get close enough to land a power punch when the guys with the longer arms and the faster feet are going to be the superstars in this sport if it does take off?
True. And I think that the way our amateur boxing is already set up, there's enough emphasis on, being able to just tag a guy and move away already that, we don't need to try to encourage more of that. Already, there's a shift that a fighter has to make from the amateur style to the pro style. I think for most fights, you do see, especially at the amateur level, you do see right away a difference between who's landing harder and who's landing just sort of stay away punches, scoring punches, but don't hurt me punches. And I think that there are times, unfortunately we have split decisions. It's a subjective sport. There's always going to be close fights. I don't really understand the logic of making changes like that. Is it just for safety? Because if it's for safety, you put too much safety into boxing, it's not boxing anymore.
Exactly.
Part of the aspect of boxing is that it's really dangerous.
And it's risky. Exactly. Listen, we're all going to live in a bubble soon. But
that was one of the things that was a quote that I liked from Pinklon Thomas. Was in one of his interviews before the verdict fight. He said, "My whole life has been a gamble." That's to some degree, that's true about boxing. To a great degree.
You're right. Good point. Alex, great job as usual, and we'll look forward to you next week, brother.
All right, Billy C. Take care.
All right. It's my man, Alex Papali, and you could catch him when we do the blast and giving us his thoughts on a lot of stuff. So, anyway, we kicked off 2017 right here, and you were with us, and we look forward to a big 2017 over the next few weeks. You're going to notice some changes here with the show, and hopefully they're all for the better, in your opinion. And if not, I'm always open for suggestion. Feel free to drop me an email. Billy@talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing.com. We pride ourselves on our interaction with you guys. So if you take the time to drop us an email, I'll take the time to read it. So like I said, our first post-fight show, which we're going to be doing a lot of, will be Saturday, January 14th, right after the Bordeaux Jack James DeGale fight. And that'll kick off our post-fight season, so to speak. Anyway, I'm glad to be back, and I'm apologize again for missing our first scheduled return due to me being sick as a dog. I'm still getting over that, but I promise next time you see and hear me, I'll be back better than ever. So, hey, listen, make sure you tune in next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.